I mean, the writer's strike is going on right now.
Yeah.
The SAG-AFTRA has their strike that they just ran.
Are you SAG-AFTRA?
I don't think so. The only thing I've really done was like
You would have a
the
card.
Boondocks.
You would have a
No,
card.
I get a check from SAG-AFTRA every so often, but no, I don't think I'm actually part of it. It's actually interesting because just the other day, I guess all the trees that were giving shade to all the picketers.
Oh yeah, I read that today.
By the studio. So now, like, the sun is like shining on them. What's your take about the strike?
I think pay the writers, give them fair health benefits. Do everything they're asking for is something fair. I saw a quote the other day ago that said, "What the actors and the writers are asking for is 2% of the gross profits of all these studios. 2%.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you got these execs making 250, 27 million, 150 million, $100 million. And I'm starting thinking about this, about the artists that are involved in this. Like, you can correlate this to the dope game. Okay. What good is a dope dealer without the dope? Okay. The dope dealer can't make the dope. They can step on it, which is what studios do anyways, right? They step on the product. Okay. But they're not making the dope. They're distributors and they're funders, basically, right? So where did we get to the point where one executive almost clears $500 million or $250 million in 5 years, and the top talent, like Tom Cruise or Chris Nolan or whatever, James Cameron, doesn't even make that, okay? Shouldn't there be a rule that as an executive or a CEO, you never should make more than your top creative talent, who's the one that actually makes it? Because a CEO doesn't own the company. An executive doesn't own the company. The shareholders own it, or there's a single owner of the independent company.
True.
So you have this capitalist, this big disparity, right? Then you have all these quotes coming out that are pretty heartless. You read them, and people are struggling, and they're the creative people. You can't run this business without writers or actors. You just can't do it. Oh, AI, that's a ways off.
No, listen, I understand. I understand both sides because I'm also an employer, and at the end of the day, I don't necessarily see a problem with the CEO making more than the talent, because the CEO ultimately has his neck on the line for a bunch of different projects that are happening. If you're an actor and your movie bombs, you still get your money.
Yeah, but you might
go
not
on to your next project.
No, you might not though. That's the game in Hollywood.
Well, but if you have a guaranteed.
No, you have your guaranteed money for that movie.
Exactly.
But if it bombs big and your next one doesn't do so well, your career may just go down.
This is
true.
true.
Be over. Executives change like underwear, by the way, okay? They have like a 5-year shelf life, okay? Or sometimes 10 or 20 if they're really good.
Unless
okay?
you're Disney.
Yeah, I know
stay on forever.
Some of those top guys can go around. But studio heads shuffle, know, and get different jobs. I just don't think, I don't know, because I'm in the creative side of this, and you are too. It's like, I just don't feel right. And I'm not trying to make this too controversial, but like, I don't feel right when there's a business, and the music business that's done this for years, where they take advantage of the people who are creating what they sell. Okay, take for instance, publishing in the music business that Prince was really into. And let's say you write a script, you write your original script, right? Is there any scenario in today's modern game where you shouldn't retain at least 2% ownership of that script without a complete buyout? Why can't the writers, this is not even on the table, by the way, but this is just common human sense. That person created that. There's no ownership.
Listen, I get it. And I remember when I first started in the film industry, my first documentary, Ghost Ride the Whip, I wrote and directed and produced it, essentially. And I have yet to see a royalty check from this project.
Yep.
I got like $25,000. It took me 6 months out of my life. I was starting Vlad TV right around the same time. And I remember at the end of that process, I said, fuck all this. I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go to YouTube, and I'm not going to have these big budgets. I'm going to start small, but I'm going to own everything.
You own that drum set behind me?
I don't own the drum set, but I'm renting it at this time. Right. But all the films, all the documentaries, interviews, whatever that I do, I own them outright. And it was just a slower route. It took 15 years to get to this point, but I understood that over time, I'll be better off not taking the upfront money, keeping the ownership, and creating a catalog and creating my IP, which is essentially what all the movie studios do anyways.
Yep.
keep coming out with these projects, and they own all the IP, and every so often they'll put it back out. Or
Yeah, but those guys are different than you. They're not actually physically making it.
but they're financing it. I'm not doing every interview myself either, but
Yeah.
I still own every interview.
Oh, I saw you outsourcing.
I'm outsourcing.
I'd be seeing you outsourcing.
I'm outsourcing. And at the end of the day, I mean, and I talk to friends who are writers, like my man Carl Jones. We talk about this. It's like, yo, you could sit there and keep fighting the system and say it's unfair, it's unfair, it's unfair. We're going to picket, we're going to strike, whatever else. Or you could say, listen, technology is evolving, and it's time that maybe I should just shift my focus and start creating my own stuff. And say, fuck these studios. Let's start creating my own stuff. Let's start doing smaller budget stuff, because a great story is a great story. No, you don't agree with me on this?
I agree with you in theory.
In theory?
Yeah. I always daydream about like grab my camera. Like I shoot shorts in Prague on my own because that's my hobby, right? But I don't have all the resources that I do when I have 100 people or 150 people, right? But I get great joy from it. And I do it to train because that's my love, right? And I've done 200 of them. No one sees any of them, right? It fills my soul. It's not paying the bills.
Well, because you're not trying to make it pay.
I'm not monetizing.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But then
the reason why I'm behind the camera is because I started out holding the camera.
Yeah.
And I started out editing the video. Yeah. And I started out uploading the video. And I started out writing up the titles and everything else like that.
Oh, the clickbait.
All that stuff. And over time, I have people that do it for me. But it took years and years and years to get to this point. So my whole thing is like, yo, like I understand things are fucked up and people who are great at what they do are not getting compensated the way that they feel they should be compensated. But this is an opportunity where you say, fuck it. If you're great at what you do and there is an audience, you don't have to go through these limited amount of resources.
That's true, but your average actor can't do that. Only 5% of them actually make somewhat of a living in SAG, right? The writers, let's not even talk about that. They're even worse off, right? You're talking also having a business sense. Most people aren't born with a business sense. So you're talking about, especially creative people. Like I'm terrible with trying to think of avenues of how to make money and stuff. I just want to do what I love, right?
I feel you, but when you compare it to the music industry, for example, you say, oh, like these original record deals are unfair to the artists and so forth. They're unfair to the guys who blow up. But for the 90% of the projects that a music label puts out that lose money.
Yeah.
And the artists and producers who are involved in those projects that lose money, they don't have to pay anything back at that point. They got whatever their advance was and they get to keep it. And when you have such a loss rate, yes, the people who do blow up will not get the best deals and will feel like they got ripped off and everything else like that.
The history of publishing, that's really complicated. And also in music,
it is very complicated.
You can actually now with technology make your record and go direct to consumer if you're smart enough. It's very similar to what you're saying.
If you have a fan base, and that's the whole thing.
One,
if you build a fan base, and it takes a while, and it's a longer route, and it's not as glamorous, and so forth. But the reality is that a lot of these people that I've met who are really famous, and everyone knows their name, like I do financially better than a lot of these people. Even though I have just a small YouTube channel and I'm not considered like a big Hollywood guy, but at the end of the day.
Well, you now got a slider in your game.
Exactly. I got sliders. I got 3 cameras. I got 20 people on staff.
I actually thought you were punching in until I came and talked to him. I thought you were punching in on like a 4K on your close-up, but it's not a punch in.
Nope. So listen, I understand both sides of it, and I hope it ultimately gets worked out. But I think that the people who are striking, they really need to take a strong look at what's happening because you're not going to stop technology, right? You're not going to stop AI. You're not going to stop, special effects, and so forth. I mean, like they're getting to the point where you don't even need sets anymore. You could.
Yeah, I think the argument is that they don't want to be their likeness used in perpetuity without being compensated. And then there's the other flip side of that too. It's like, I think the creators, writers, and directors, and even actors want to be the ones in control of the tool of AI. Mm-hmm. If you start saying the studio's in control or these AMPTP is in control, they'll start having these little farmhouses like Putin does with disinformation. There'll be these little houses with little minions in there doing their thing that are under directive from executives and have nothing to do with the filmmaking process, the acting process, directing process, the writing process, right? And it's going to be like some small kind of offsite experiment. That's what they're actually, I think, fighting against. like you as a filmmaker, if the studio says to you, "We respect you. Can you use this tool? We won't look over your shoulder while you look at, but just use it. It's your discretion." That's what I think is fair.
We'll see what happens, man. I mean, I hope it ultimately works out because I'm a fan of Hollywood and I love Hollywood projects.
Do you like movies?
I love movies.
Okay.
I love movies.